All right, it is 3 o'clock, and welcome and good afternoon to the March Pre-Planning Commission meeting for the City of Frederick. First, we will take our roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis present.
Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sparati present.
Commissioner Strassen.
Commissioner Strassen present.
And Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell and Willoughby present.
Terrific. So we are going to go through our agenda items A through I first, and then we have a discussion afterward with Scott Waxter on making motions, and I assume that that will all be part of the meeting that will be made public. So we'll start with our agenda, and the first thing is a consent item. It's item A, PC 20809. It's master plan for Tuscarora Creek. And I actually did not have item A in my packet. I wasn't sure if anybody else did or not.
Yep,
You?
I do. Yep.
Okay, then maybe somehow I never mind. It was underneath something.
I have it as
Take
well.
that back. All right, so item A, that is Sherry.
Good afternoon. There's nothing additional to add since the workshop, so I believe it's good to go, and we don't have any conditions either, so.
Okay, let's do a quick roll call for any questions or comments. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, the only question I had, and I guess because I'm trying to remember, in the past with the APFO, did that also include the police department as well, or was it always just fire and rescue? I just can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, I should say, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Are you referring to, well, it's the APFO is for roads, schools,
Right.
water and sewer, so.
Okay, then maybe what I'm referring to is fire and rescue. I don't know what that would fall under. Is that all not part or bundled in? I'm just trying to, I know that typically, we get a response from fire and rescue to see the distance in response. And so what I was wondering was, is the police department also included in that, or
Sure. This is Gabrielle. We generally don't route to the police department all of our applications. They will on occasion assess projects for CPTED, community crime prevention through design. We do seek their input in different cases if there's a question or concern for their feedback, but they generally don't review all of our applications.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. I was just trying to remember. Okay.
And that review unfortunately doesn't involve capacity and ability to serve. It's really about just the design and lighting and placement of fences and plantings and those sorts of things.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sparati, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen.
Commissioner Strassen, so just to confirm, this is on the consent agenda because there's no conditions, or was there some other reason you put it on the consent agenda?
No, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Alderman Russell.
No questions, thank you.
So I was trying to find this quickly, but isn't this the item that we had public comment on during the workshop? Or
This is the master plan. The one that we had comment on was for the apartment complex.
okay, that's what I just couldn't find it. So there has been no public comment on this one. Okay. All right, that was my only question. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to our next item, and that is the election of officers. So Gabrielle, do you want to take us through this?
Sure. We're actually a little late in electing our officers this year. I apologize. We don't have a full commission. We still don't have a full commission, any new appointees, but we should go ahead and make sure that we elect new officers for this year. So added it to the agenda, and we're still on the search for a new appointee.
Okay. And the officers include the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. And the secretary typically for, it has been our alderman representative. And I know that there's a really articulate reason for that. Can either Alderman Russell or Gabrielle give us that reason?
Sure. So part of the secretary's responsibility is also to sign the Mylars, which are recorded plats. So having the convenience of our alderman at our disposal has been tremendously helpful, just because people do, they drop them off and expect things to be recorded fairly quickly. So it is a bit of a timeliness issue.
And I'm sure that that's really helped over the past months. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, we'll do a quick roll call through to see if there's any questions or comments about this item. Commissioner Manelis. Okay.
No question about this item. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson, I'm good, thanks.
And Alderman Russell.
My question is, we have a chair and we have a secretary. What we don't have is a vice chair. Do we want to discuss potential nominations now or wait till Monday evening?
We can discuss it now.
Anybody want to throw their hat in the ring?
I mean, I'd be happy to if
I nominate Joan.
if that makes everybody
I
comfortable.
second that.
Okay,
All right, we'll hold that till Monday.
okay.
You know, these conversations are always so interesting to me, but all righty then. I don't have anything else to say. That takes us to our next item. Item C, PC 20-383. It's a final plat for West South Street.
This is a request from a subdivision that went through you for approval earlier, where they have two conditions of approval and to receive their unconditional approval of the final plat. The applicants come back and asking for revision to remove the second condition, and that is for an encroachment easement for the city onto the properties for the right of way. And it has been determined that the more appropriate time for that encroachment agreement to be recorded is right before the building permit is issued, because of the encroachment agreement is asking for an exhibit and everything beforehand be attached. It's actually, what's it say here? That paragraph, this is now therefore the provisions agreement require that an exhibit is attached for the improvements of the right of way. So we will support that condition be changed for approval.
And Pam, this is the first time we've seen this item, correct? It did not do a workshop?
No, not for this. Because you have gone through the final plat, and this is something that does not need to be advertised. And so we just brought this straight for you to look at here.
Okay. Well, we will do a roll call. Commissioner Manelis.
Commissioner Manelis, so I just want to be clear. So with number 2, there's a recommendation to eliminate condition 2 based on the fact that there are 4 separate lots which would eventually at some point be 4 separate owners, which would require 4 separate encroachment
Agreements.
agreement. Right. And so, and then on top of that, the design is incomplete, so it would be hard to kind of tell, you know, where that would be to some degree, correct?
Right, but also to, for having the ownership and signing the agreement for the encroachment.
Right. Okay. So I guess my question is, why can't we modify number 2? Does it have to be eliminated? Or like, I don't understand, I guess. I understand why that request was put in, and I get it. I'm just understanding, can number 2 be modified for it to be for a later time, or I'm just curious.
Well, that would entail that we would maybe probably just say that you'd have a note on the plat on the plat stating that the encroachment agreement would be done prior to the issuance of individual building permits for the lots. It would have to be just a note placed on there instead of just eliminating the condition that they can get their unconditional approval of their final plat to be recorded.
Okay.
We did, you know, we in the report, since the encroachment, to Commissioner Manalis's point, the encroachment is going to be reflective of the improvement that's actually shown on the site plan. It's really a note associated with the physical improvements, whereas the recordation of a plat is really just creating the land boundaries. So that right-of-way encroachment is really more of a function of the site plan, which we'll add a note to, than it is the plat itself.
Okay. Okay. That was my only question.
That was a very helpful question. Commissioner Sparati,
Commissioner Sprati, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen,
Commissioner Slauson, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, no questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I am good now too, especially after that conversation. So thank you for that. Okay. Next item is item D, and this is the architectural review for Gateway Plaza East, Royal Farms, PC 16-696.
Hey, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Nothing has really changed on these plans. The architectural elevations submitted are mirror image of what we have seen in the previous workshop. Staff report was typed up, just outlining once again the standards for review, section 863 for shopping centers. These architectural reviews are fairly rewarding and very transparent. It gives us kind of an opportunity on staff reports to really kind of point and visually depict what we're reviewing. So if any members of the public are interested or following along, it's fairly easy to follow. But yeah, really nothing much to add on those. Just what was seen before. Minimal discussion at the workshop. So not much to report.
Okay, we'll do our roll call. Commissioner Manalis,
Commissioner Manals, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati,
Commissioner Sprati, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen,
Commissioner Slauson, I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Russell.
No questions from me. Thank you.
And I am also at no questions. It's an unconditional approval. And as you said, there's nothing new since the workshop. All right. So then we have a similar one, and I assume that's still you, Charles, on the next one. The next one is item E. This is also an architectural review for Gateway Plaza East for the McDonald's, PC 16-696-02.
Yes, Madam Chair, correct. The same matter here, same review standards, section 863, shopping centers, exact same elevations as previously seen. Staff report once again typed up for transparency. Received no public comment in the past, and really nothing's changed. Just trying to make a tasteful architectural elevation here. So that's it.
All right. Why don't I just take a look at the commissioners? Does anyone have a question or comment? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Charles.
you.
We will go on to new business. So we have our next item, item F, is final site plan for Tuscarora Creek multifamily. And that's PC 20-973.
Hello, Sherry again. Nothing new really to report with regard to this one. This is the project that had the public comment. So I believe all those comments were included in your packets. So I don't know if you have any questions with regard to those. There are some conditions that we have for the plan. We did notice that one of the buildings, the height was slightly over 55 feet. So one of the conditions will be for them to revise that so the building is no taller than 55 feet. And then just a couple of other minor notes with regard to some overlapping text and stuff. And that's it.
Okay. And Sherry, there's been nothing new since, well, actually there is some new things. The lighting issue.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, they did. They did revise it so that they do not need a modification any longer.
And also I see this note here about the county's bus service since the workshop.
Yes, they, the applicant did chat via email with the person, our contact with the transit group, and there isn't anything planned out for this area at this time.
Okay, so thank you. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manelis, this is just in response to one of the emails that was sent, I think, that talked about traffic, and I can't remember right now if we ever discussed traffic in regards to this. And so I was wondering, I don't know, it talks about, you know, the increased flow of traffic and speeding. I mean, I'm not really sure what to really say about that. But I mean, is there any increase in traffic with this development? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Chairman, you're on mute, but thank you for joining us.
Sure, you're welcome. Yeah, as far as traffic, I mean, certainly the APFO was for traffic was, or roads were completed as part of the original master plan. So these developments were, or density was sort of anticipated as part of that. So nothing really changed from what was determined from that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, welcome.
Anything else?
That was it. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
Mr. Strawson, I'm good, thank you.
Alderman Russell.
I'm also good, thank you.
And I just want to comment that I am pleased that the applicant did go back and make those changes to the lighting plan. Okay, I think that's it for this item. Our next one is a combined preliminary plat and final site plat for Riverside Lot 250 RA-1 and RA-2, and this is PC 20-968.
This is the Riverside MXE location, Wells Fargo, as you know it, and the subdivision of the buildings. We have 4 motions that you'll be looking at. One for the 0 lot line. You have the bicycles, parking spaces for reduction, and then one of the lots have to exceed the maximum parking spaces. And then the notes for the staff report, you have 4 conditions, which basically is cleanup of the plan there. And I don't think we have any, oh, and Cherian did make note that he has looked at the plan a little closer. It's making its way through engineering at this time with improvement plans at a timely basis for this applicant. And he recognized that he would like to adjust the curb entrance and with parking spaces to be shifted. I don't know, Cherian, if you want to explain a little bit more about that, but that's something we will be looking at to revise for you for Monday.
Yeah, these are minor changes. Basically, one is to the rear of the proposed building to better align the handicap crossing. We are suggesting they expand the island to remove one parking space to better locate that handicap ramp there. And the other change is to the front of the building to where they do have a drive aisle along the front. Pam, can you? Yeah, that. And to the west end of it, there is another connection to the parking lot there, parking area. Sorry, other side, Pam's. Can I request control?
Go for it, Cherian.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is the drive aisle along the frontage that is needed for fire access, the fire trucks. This is their access. And when we looked at the IP, thought that this particular connection is redundant and probably too close to this main entrance, and where they are anticipating some drop-offs and as such. So the recommendation as part of the IP review is to close this and potentially pick up some additional parking spaces. So overall, the net addition to the parking with the changes is about 3 more spaces. So that's the 2 changes, and the applicant is happy to accommodate those changes to help improve both pedestrian and circulation.
Okay, is that the extent of the staff comments then? Are you ready for questions?
That is.
Okay. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, I have no questions, just a comment. I like the way the staff put together the layout of the recommendation. Sorry for the background noise, but for the layout of how the motions are, I thought that was really good and helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sparati.
No questions, but I will second Commissioner Manalis's comment. It's very easy that the motions are all laid out that way for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Commissioner Strassen.
Commissioner Strassen, I have no questions, and I will just add my agreement that I really like this format to the staff report.
Mm-hmm. And Alderman Russell.
Ditto.
Okay. I have 2 questions and 1 comment. So in the motion, there's a different number of parking spaces. I think it's removed than what's in the staff report. One has 50, yeah, the motion has 54 and the staff report has 53. Just wanted to confirm which one was correct.
What the difference is, the fact is that they require 53, but as for racks, you will get 54 because you have 2 sides on the rack. So I guess we will make that correct. Well, we can make that correction to be 53, but 27 racks, because that's what you're going to receive.
I get it. Oh, okay. So that's why it says 53, and I just didn't read carefully enough. I think if it says 53 are required, and it's getting 54 with 27 racks, that's fine, I guess. My other question was on page 7. The sentence "as compensating design" right above traffic analysis. The applicant offers an addition of bicycle parking on lots 250 RA1 and 250 RA2 as reasonable since the building existed with no spaces originally. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Are they going to put more bicycle spaces elsewhere, or are they saying as compensating design to the modification to have fewer bicycle racks is the fact that they didn't have any in the first place?
Well, that's true. They are actually putting bicycle racks on the adjacent lot also too, which they're not required to do at all. And then they are giving you the bicycle racks added to the lot that never had bicycle racks and operation in the first place. These employees never had that luxury or whatever for bicycle racks, and I don't know if they would use as many as it's calculated out to be, since you've got such an excessive amount of parking for these large buildings. But anyway, and then that's what we're looking at there, is that they're making up for even the employees having additional parking spaces. Would they drive, or would they really use all the bicycle, racks?
So then my part B question is, how many more, in addition to these 40 spaces, 40 bike spaces, how many more are they adding on these other parcels then?
They're adding 40. They're adding the same on the other lot. They're adding 20 racks and 20 racks on each lot.
Oh, so then it's really a total of 80 spaces.
Between the two lots, yes. Even though they're going to be, for most part, you're not going to see crossover between these two operations, because that is the whole idea, that they're separating these lots for a medical complex, and then you have the Wells Fargo complex.
Okay. All right. So for me, just to confirm, they are only required to put spaces on this new lot, 250 RA-2.
No, they're required
250 RA-1. Yeah.
Right.
And as compensating feature, they're going to add the same number. So they're going to add 40 more spaces on the other. So there's going to be total of new 80 spaces.
Between the
which is good.
two lots,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, great. And then my only comment, I do agree that I like the motions like this. The first motion does not say a modification, and is the first one is the fact to reduce the interior setback, wouldn't that also be a modification? And if so, I actually do think it helps to include in the request or include in the write-up here that it is a modification.
It is reduction. Yes, it is a modification of the setback.
Okay, that was just my one.
Gabrielle, I just wanted to note that in the, much like with PNDs, the planned neighborhood developments, the MXC gives the Planning Commission kind of a broad authority to set the standards. So that as part of the overall development regulations, you're establishing unique setbacks possibly to that one development. So in terms of it being a modification or setting that standard, it's really more the latter of the two, that you're consenting to that being the development standard, as opposed to modifying that something that's explicitly stated, if that makes sense. It's a subtle nuances.
Okay.
Probably not super material to a lot, but when you actually dig through and read the pieces of the code, it is within the authority of the Planning Commission to just establish those to achieve the overall objectives of the community, and a lot of those are summarized in the background.
So interesting, and thank you. What kind of threw me off then, it said before grant on page 6, underneath the paragraphs of the applicant is requesting the following. It says before granting a modification, the commission needs to. So I actually did assume that was a modification then. So, but I understand what you're saying. So. Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Alderman Russell.
Put my hand down there. I just wanted to mention that when you're riding a bicycle, having a bicycle rack is not really a luxury, it's kind of a necessity. So you have to have some place to lock your bike up. And I appreciate they're putting all these in.
That's true.
And I had one comment to make just for clarification purposes. On page 8, motion 3.
So, I see your hand, but I didn't see your face. Okay.
Oh.
That's why I didn't call on you. So I apologize.
I'm sorry. I forgot I wasn't even on. Like, so just to confirm, motion 3 at the bottom of 8, that stays at 54, correct? Not 53. I just want to make sure that I understood. So that's what you were saying. I think it's Pam.
They are reducing by 53, and and that can be stated that way. It will still be 27 racks though, because you have them two-sided.
Okay, good. Then the motion will change to 53. And thank you for clarifying that. Okie doke. Now we move on to H. It's final site plan for Waverly View, Part 1, PC 21-87.
Okay,
Pam.
this is, applicant is looking for approval of their design detail, as we discussed at the workshop, with the front-loaded integral townhomes to remove the garage. We worked through the amount of parking that we felt they would have in that area C specifically. And they are looking at that whole phase 1, part 1, we call it, of Waverly View, as that includes the area F2 and F3 and area C. And actually, FC is the only one with the front integral townhomes. They did demonstrate that they wanted to remove the rear integral garages, but they will have 2 parking spaces at the rear of their lot, so they still will have their parking in place. So really the analysis is done and for that area C. And then all the comments that we have placed on this one is actually more of cleanup of their plan and design booklet, and nothing else to add.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, no questions or comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen.
Mr. Strassen, I'm good. Thank you.
Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, no questions.
Okay. So Pam, just to confirm, on page 6, that you make a couple of comments that the main issue is the impact, or the main issue is the impact this has on not only individual unit parking, but on neighborhood. But this is only reducing the extra spaces by 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
yes.
So when you add down the existing spaces, you would add the 30, 86, and 71, and then the proposed is 21, 86, and 71. And I did not do a total of all that, but it's almost 200 spaces, but there would be 9 less. Okay, that doesn't sound too terrible to me.
Okay, you're going down all 3 areas, right?
Is that not right? Area C, area F2, area F3?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking at the whole phase 1. Area C, the reason why we looked at that area in a more of a capsule for itself is because it crosses over Shookstown Road. So those people are looking at the reduced 9 spaces for just area C.
Okay. Which is about a third then. When you look at going from 30 to 21, you're reducing it almost by a third. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you. And then I just want to make a comment that I do like the addition of the no parking signs.
Yes. I think it's a necessity since we have that many times in the alleyways, as you know, so people don't block alleys for trash pickup, for emergency vehicles and so forth. So it's an actually reason to understand if a car gets towed.
Right. Good point. So I can see everybody. Yeah, Alderman Russell.
Just with regard to no parking signs, we have in the past had developments get built, people move in, and then no parking signs arrive. And so I just want to make sure that these arrive timely before the people move in, so they understand what the rules are.
Good point.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Jerry, and just chime in on that no parking. I know this has been an issue. We've taken care of it as part of the IP, and we're very proactive about it.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, okay. I don't see that anybody else has a comment, so we will go on to our next and last item. And this is item I. It's a combined preliminary plat and final site plan, and final site, I guess it's a plan for Gambrel View, PC 20-654.
Yes, this is a plan that is part of the Waverly View project. It's part 2, phase 2, if you want to think of it. It is for the last area of residential development for this project. Day 2, we justified incorporating the new detail from the design booklet for the front integral garages. Also to look at design itself for development. This is the first time this one's being seen before the Planning Commission for a site plan design. And the lots, this is a combined plan, like I said, establishing the lots and the site plan review for the units. Don't think I have a whole lot more to say, except that we have a number of, may look like it's overwhelming amount of conditions. But again, these are somewhat more cleanup of the design booklet and the plan itself. Basically, just to clean up the plan and incorporate that new detail for their design booklet also.
Then Pam, there were 2 comments in here that referenced the workshop. If you could talk a little bit about those.
Okay.
On page 5. On page 5.
Page 5. We understand you had noted some comments from the workshop about the safety of the development of the area, and the applicant responded with the fact that, you know, they've gone through EPA to move forward. And so we touched upon that briefly. It's not really in purview for us at this point with the site plan. So, but we wanted to address it for your information at least. And what was the other one?
It was a Christopher Crossing alignment. It's right under that.
Under phasing for the Christopher's
Yeah.
Crossing. Working originally connecting the alignment. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much straightforward that right now they're showing the Christopher's Crossing as it was planned for. We understand, you know, that the city is still going through negotiations with Fort Detrick to get agreements for the realignment. It's the most we can say. And then they also, I put in here with the phasing, because of Christopher Crossing, and design, and they're paying per unit for this, their obligation towards Christopher's Crossing.
Okay. All right. We will do a roll call. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manellis, no question or comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sparati, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson, I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, just to clarify to that second point, I think the discussion was to make sure that we had right of way or for the Christopher's Crossing original alignment, should the other alignment not come to fruition, which is, you know, perhaps a decade away, if then, who knows?
Yes, the plan should stay intact with the width of the Christopher's Crossing, and that land is available for further improvement that would have to be done if the alignment through 14th Street does not go forward. Is Cherian still with us? Yep. You have anything to add, Cherian?
No, not really. I mean, there is some constraint to the right of way, but I think we've worked out an easement probably. So I think in good shape, at least, if the alignment is to go the original way through Kent Lane.
Okay. Okay. And I appreciate the conversation or the text in here about concluding that the applicant is obligated to construct the shared use path per the plan and in accordance with the current city standard. So that was a good thing to get that nailed down. Commissioner Manalis has her hand raised. Is that from a previous item? Okay.
That's this is a previous item. Sorry.
Okay. No, I just noticed it. Anything else on this one? Okay. So that concludes our regular agenda. And at this point, we're going to turn it over to Scott Waxter and Gabrielle to about the discussion on making motions. Is there anything else we need to do to wrap the meeting up? It's still a public meeting. Yes, that's what I assume.
Yeah, thank you. So as I noted earlier in an email, and you all picked up on this afternoon, we did try to arrange the formatting of our motions to kind of simplify, to really clearly identify what the motion, each individual decision point that has to be made, the considerations for those decision points, and then we offered our recommendation on that. In talking with Scott after we published the staff reports, he had a good recommendation, and that was, instead of maybe calling them motions, that we call them actions, so that it's clearly establishing that this is the action that the commission has to weigh in on. The other thing in working on the formatting to assist you when you're compiling a motion, by putting kind of our recommendation after, I thought just in reading it, it looked a little clearer for you to kind of structure your own motion to be able to just pull from that first line, you know, it's an action to or a motion to, and then we've offered the findings. So that way you don't have to worry about kind of getting caught up with what our recommendation is, but really just focusing on those first 2 points to articulate your own decision making. So we'll totally see how it goes. We only did it for that staff report because it was the only one that had multiple motions. If this is something we like, I think I'd want to restructure them all to, even if it's just a singular action that's being taken, to just be consistent across the board. So, you know, no pride in ownership with any of this. You know, we want it to be as flexible for you guys to read and to be able to turn around and craft into your own motions. So if you have any suggestions after we go through the hearing on Monday, I'm super happy to continue to work on it. With that, maybe I'll turn it over to Scott. He and I talked yesterday, just you know, kind of establishing not a real agenda for our discussion here. We want to make sure we can ask questions, answer questions, kind of provide helpful tips. So yeah, kind of a free flow conversation, but I'll turn it over to Scott.
Sure, thank you. And I echo that sentiment. There's not a whole lot that I have prepared as far as a lecture or a training session on motions. I think it's important that we sort of remember what the legal department's role here is not in any way to, I guess, prod you or direct you into one type of a decision or another. I frankly don't believe it's my job to care what your decision is. I think from a legal aspect, it's entirely my job to care that whatever decision you make, I can stand in front of a judge and defend that decision and make it a decision that stands up to judicial scrutiny. So in furtherance of that, I really like what Gabrielle has done with her staff reports, because it allows you to make each of these individual motions or take each of these individual actions and sort of, to the extent you can, you craft it into an actual decision by the Planning Commission. One of the things that is often sort of a sticking point when you get to court for me is that if you've just simply repeated everything that's in the staff report and you read it without giving it much thought or much consideration, that's subject to being overturned, because the defense attorney or the attorney on the other side would say that you made no findings at all and that you simply rubber stamped everything that the department said. And that is a big sort of a no-no, if you will, however you want to say it. It's important that you make findings. When you make your motion, it doesn't have, and in the Historic Preservation Commission, I advise them, does it in a slightly different way. But your motion really is a simple thing. It's, I make a motion to approve X, Y, Z. But then it goes further, and then you say, and for these reasons, and if you articulate in great detail why you believe that a modification is appropriate here, or why you believe that a modification is not appropriate in this case, and you spell it out, that's going to be my best tool when it comes down to defending whatever it is that you say. Anything that's in controversy, or anything that's, you can go with A or B, and you spell it out as to why you decided A, is going to be almost impenetrable, if you will, as far as poking holes through your decision, because you've articulated why and what the reasons are. And if you discuss it and you talk about it, that's all fine. And later we can get down into the nitty gritty, but your motion doesn't have to be, I make a motion to approve for these reasons, or to include all of these. And then when somebody says, well, I'd like you to add a change to that motion, and you have to go back and reread every sentence that you just said. It's really about making the motion to approve or not approve, or modification, or whatever you want, and then really backing it up with your statements. And so I think what Gabrielle has provided to you in this most recent staff report lets you think about it. It lets you go into the planning or the comp plan and say, right, this is consistent with comp plan provision X or Y or whatever you pick. And that's the most important thing as far as a legal aspect of defending everything that you do. And it absolutely requires you to do your homework. And I know that's why each of you are passionate to be on the Planning Commission, each of why you've selected to be here, not to just sit by and approve everything else that your co-commissioners say, but you giving it independent thought. And I really hope that in the future that it's not just one or two of you that make 95% of the motions. I think that each of you should practice this and do this and become very fluent in saying, here's why I approve and here's all my reasons for doing so. And if we get into a case where you flub it up a little bit, or you stumble over your words, we can fix that. That's not an issue. So don't be so I don't want to say tentative or hesitant to be the motion maker, under the thought that you might not say every exacting word correctly, because we'll work through that. That's not a problem. But if you go about deciding what the reason is you want to make a motion, and I think that Gabrielle and I talked that maybe you make a note for yourself that on page 5 of the staff report, one of the staff members said, here's why we're making an amendment to the parking standard, or here's why we're doing this, and bring that up as part of the justification for your motion. I really think you're going to be in good shape. For the most part, you guys do an excellent job as to listening to the staff, listening to the presenter, listening even to public comment, and utilizing that information as a part of your motion is really what is going to be the most defensible thing for me. So I encourage you to look at the way Gabrielle has written this new staff report. It gives you the ample opportunity to pull out and do sort of, again, your homework to figure out why you're going to make your motion and what information you're going to use to support your motion. Don't, if to the extent possible, and not every case can be ultra high controversy, but to the extent possible, say, staff found X, and here is why I agree with staff, right? Or staff on this. Don't just read staff report and say, here's the reasons why we believe this should be approved, and just read word for word what staff wrote, because that's not very creative, and that can, in certain situations, lead to your decisions being questioned a little bit more than if you are more articulate. I don't know, I keep saying the same thing, but what you do is now a good thing, and you can always improve it by making better factual findings. So, but I can answer any questions, and we can go over whatever you guys think is important, and that's sort of where it comes down to.
I think to one quick thing, we as staff, we spend hours writing this stuff. For you all to be able to on the fly, I mean, I couldn't articulate on the fly the exact verbiage that I've used, right? Because I've spent, Pam and I have both spent an hour looking at this staff report, tweaking the words. So to be kind of on the fly trying to make a motion is a lot more challenging. It's not something we do. And what I guess my kind of best advice is to keep it simple. I think a lot of times the way we write things, staff recommends approval, blah, 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 and we give all these project numbers and all this complicated stuff. And my hope was that, number one, it's just a request to reduce the interior setback. I moved to approve that request, and trying to just keep it as simple maybe as possible. And I hope that removing some of that staff recommends and then requiring you kind of on the fly to go, okay, staff's recommended, I'm going to make a motion, and having to kind of, very, very quickly think about how to articulate it. If you just focus on that request, and then as Scott said, finding that, yeah, this is a good thing because it supports the comprehensive plan and, the economic development goal or the land use objectives, and just trying to keep it simpler. And I think the language we sometimes offer is overly complicated for a lot of it. And it's good, but it's not conducive to a good dialogue sometimes, and to making a really good finding.
I will also go back and add the document that Gabrielle sent around recently that talks about how you make these motions and things. That's a template. So you aren't required to follow that exactly, but it does give you a good kind of a format to say, here's my motion to approve, and then again a separate sentence to, and I find that this. And it's okay if Joan or Dorothy or Barbara don't agree with all the factual findings. You don't have to change your motion. If somebody says, well, I think factually you found this, but I would say this. Good. That's what you're there to do. It's not supposed to be everybody has to agree. You got to get three of the five to come up with an answer. And it's better if you all agree, but we don't have to. So if you find this way, and then during the discussion, Dorothy says, well, I'm going to vote in favor of, but I find a little differently. Boy, that's absolutely okay too. You don't have to go back and change your motion because somebody doesn't agree with all the facts that you decided. And so those are, again, also important. So you can use that form. Don't have to make it, if I don't say these exact words, all of a sudden we're in trouble. That's not the case. So use the form, write it out ahead of time. If you feel like this is something you're really interested in, you can even sort of, before we get to the meeting, write out what you think are the important factors. I will note that I trust and believe that each of you aren't making decisions without hearing all the evidence, without hearing from all the commenters and all of the presentation. I don't ever expect or want you to come into a meeting and say, I know the way I'm going to vote, right? Because that's not doing your job. Your job is to listen, to be thoughtful, to consider everything that is presented. You might have a leaning one way or another, and you might come into the hearing and not be swayed by anything that was said, and you're still leaning to approve or you're leaning to disapprove, and that's okay too. It's important that you always keep an open mind, that you listen to everything that people say, and if you feel like acknowledging that, say, I was not swayed by the voluminous public input on this matter, or based on everything else, I believe that this is something that we need to take more into consideration, and that's why I'm doing X, Y, Z. Again, all of that makes my job a heck of a lot easier when you articulate your findings, when you articulate the reasons. Having said all that, don't go wild on me and start picking a reason for denying something that's not part of the land management code. I had, when I first started, I had a group deny building code because they thought it cast a shadow on the neighboring property. And that wasn't one of the factors that you could consider. And the chairman said, well, hey, thanks, Mr. Waxter, we're still going to deny it for this. It promptly got appealed, and we promptly lost on appeal because you kind of went outside of the parameters of the LMC. So I'm not encouraging you to go rogue, but to the extent that you are within the consideration factors, by all means, discuss it, talk about it, mention what part of the comp plan you think this is consistent with. You'll do great.
Scott, I remember when we had a conversation along these similar lines a couple years ago. I took away, again, how important findings were, and that we articulate our own findings and not say the way that the reports used to be written, not say as we do with the conditions, as per the findings written in the report by the staff, et cetera, because that's not making them ours. But also the other takeaway I had was if we are going to deny something, and especially if we're not agreeing with the rest of the commission, it's very important to state why, and not just to deny, but to give the findings.
Sure, I 100% agree. My ears always perk up a little more when I hear you guys leaning towards denial of something, because frankly, that's more likely to get appealed than an approval, right? Unless we have, half of Frederick City out here, giving public comment against something and you still approve it, that happens too, right? That happens frequently, in fact. But always and I don't want you to take one case more seriously than the next, but especially in cases where that there's a controversy arising, it's of utmost importance that you give those reasons. And Barb, you're 100% right. Even if you disagree with your fellows on the commission, it's okay. We all don't have to agree to everything. Say why, be articulate, and give your rationale. And that's exactly the way that my world will work a lot better, and then I'll be able to defend your world a lot better when you do those things.
Other comments? As we said, we're going to make this a free-flowing. Gabrielle, the form, the template that Scott was talking about, was that the one Scott, was that what we just got, or was there something else that we got?
That was, and actually it was developed a couple of years ago. I think Barb and Kelly were probably the only ones on the commission at the time. But then I resent it out. Dorothy had asked after our maybe December or January meeting, to have some more discussion on this. And I pulled up that old template. So I think I sent it out in June sometime. I can forward it.
I see it as soon as I kept looking, I couldn't find it, but now I see it. So thank you. Yeah, great. All right. Anybody have any questions on that form or anything else?
I guess I wanted to pipe in procedurally something that might be helpful that I think we don't necessarily do it on a consistent basis, is take the motion on the second and then have discussion before we vote. We very often go, here's a motion, here's a second, everybody votes, and that's the end of that. And sometimes it behooves us. So I think on a more consistent basis, we pause after every motion and second and see if there is any further discussion. At that point, that's a really great time to add in, there was a findings that someone missed that I'd like to add in or whatever. So it's all sort of in the record.
Excellent
Kelly,
point.
That's a great idea. And that's where I say that sort of the more simple motion is I motion to approve and I find these 5 things. then Kelly chimes in and says, well, I'm going to be in favor of this because I also find that XYZ. We don't have to go back and redo the motion after that to say, oh, would you include these other findings in your motion? No, it was all part of the discussion. I think that's equally fine and equally well received by the court if it came down to it. So, Barb, that's a great idea that Kelly points out, is you get a motion, you get a quick second, and then you say, okay, let's talk about this. Does anybody have comment on why we are, or why, you know, they're in favor of approval or not in favor of approval? That sometimes slows down our meeting, right? Because everybody wants to chime in. Not everybody has to make a comment about every single case, but you welcome the opportunity for everyone to comment, to chime in, to give their rationale. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity to then you give your findings, even if you're not the motion maker. Give your findings as to why you think you should be in support. And maybe that helps each of you then in the future become a better motion maker. You're commenting and giving findings on someone else's motion, and then next time you'll have sort of more of a confidence to make that motion and or, you know, set it out there, and with the confidence that if you miss something, somebody else will chime in and help you out with that.
And even if something gets missed, as long as what's put in the record is enough, then it's enough. It doesn't have to be more than enough. So
a scintilla of evidence.
Yeah, so I don't see this as a challenge to, after every second we need to have a robust discussion, but there should be a pause just in case anybody needs to add anything.
Agreed.
Yeah, and we'll get into our rhythm. In this environment, not at first, but in this environment, I can see all of you. And it may be, if it seems like that there wasn't a lot of conversation, I might look and see, and you can raise your hand. And if there's been a lot of conversation, I may do a roll call. And if any of you at any point would like that to change, then let's talk about that. So,
Yeah.
So, all right, this has been good. So, and thank you both.
I'll just say, I think everybody's done a stellar job of adapting to a completely weird environment and continuing to do business as usual.
Right.
Yeah, you guys do an amazing job. It is. We do spend so many hours. I mean, this is just 5 people's full-time job to read these reports, write these reports, reread them, review the plans, and for you guys to have to digest and then make decisions on that in, you know, a couple hours a week, you know, or a couple hours a month. That is a really amazing, amazing commitment you all are making, and is really impressive because, you know, it's 40 times 5 people, 40 hours a week times 5 people. You know, this is what we're doing. But you guys do it in a lot less time and with a lot less resources and independently, and that's hard. So yeah, you guys do awesome.
Well, I also would like to make just one quick comment, and I want to thank you, Gabrielle, for, you know, taking into consideration our needs and level of comfort and supporting our development in this process. I do appreciate that. And I also appreciate, you know, Scott taking the time as well to talk to us, in which I find in an inspirational way. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Thank you. Scott doesn't get called inspiration very often. Like lawyers don't inspire. I'd like to think planners might inspire people somewhere along. But no offense, Scott. But
we are on the bottom rung of that ladder, I can tell you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. And actually, I have been enjoying this environment because I like to see your faces and your expressions. And when we're lined up like this, and as you know, I can only hear in one ear. So when I'm up there, I'm kind of swiveling. And so I actually like this environment.
Yeah, I've been.
All right. So with that, our meeting is adjourned, and we'll see each other on Monday.
Yep. On
Thank
Monday.
you.
Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Yay.
Bye.